guys, and welcome back to Autumn Leigh at Home. As you can tell, I have a little bit of a cold today, so just bear with me. But today we are going to be making butter together. And obviously I have my kids with me, and so I wanted it to be kind of a fun experience for them to get to learn how to make butter as I learn. However, I will say today did not go quite as planned. It turned out fine, and so I'm going to talk you through how I did it and the do's and don'ts of what I did wrong and what I did right. So please follow along with me as we get started. I watched a lot of videos on how to make butter, and so the videos made it look so simple. And so I thought this would be a fun experiment with the kids, and it was going to be easy and turn out just fine, no problems. And I wasn't planning to do a video this day, but I decided to video it just for fun. And we got started with the heavy whipping cream. And I think that was one of the mistake number one that I did. I put too much in there at one time. I should have just put one bottle. So we put the heavy whipping cream in the blender. And again, mistake number two, I probably should have used a handheld blender, because I think as you see this video, you'll see what I'm talking about. But I think the butter got too warm and I let it go too long. But like I said, it turned out just fine in the end after I put it in the refrigerator. I want you guys to learn from my mistakes. And so this is something that I almost didn't share this video, but I thought that it would be fun for you guys to see a real life version and realistic version of making butter. All the videos I watched online made it look so simple. And once I got started, when I started, it was simple. But as I got going, I think I was just questioning myself and questioning what it was supposed to look like. So here, as you turn the blender on and let it go for a little bit, it turns into whipped cream first, and that's what you just saw me dipping spoons in and letting the kids try it. If you stop here after blending it on high or medium high for a little while, it turns into this whipped cream. And if you stop right here, you can add sugar and or vanilla extract and have wonderful homemade whipping cream, like whipped cream, that you can put on pies or anything else, brownies, whatever you want. But to get the butter, you have to hit it and put it on high for a little bit longer. And you'll hear the mixer change sound when it turns to butter or starts turning to butter. I think that's where I got a little confused on, do I let it keep going? Because the videos all made it look like there was a lot of liquid in the bottom of theirs before they stopped it. And I think that's where, because I put two containers in there, it was hard for me to be able to tell. And so I would recommend maybe just doing one container a little bit at a time. And if you have fresh cow's milk, that is even better, because you can get the cream off the top of the cow's milk and use that. We did not, and I was unable to find any organic or farmer's milk within the amount of time of getting to do it with these kids. So we just went to the store and got whipping cream, and that works just fine too. There are pros and cons to that as well, so I will discuss those later on in the video. But here you can see I'm talking to them, and we're talking about the different colors and how it's changing texture, and that's what you want to see. And you can see the butter separating from the milk. This, I think, is where I probably should have stopped it, but I didn't, and I let it keep going. So that was mistake number three. I would recommend making sure that when you see that butter separate, go ahead and stop it and try to get all the butter out. And from there, you will be able to separate, and here in a minute, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about too, but you'll be able to separate the butter from the buttermilk. And so you have no waste in making butter, which is kind of the fun part too, because my husband loves buttermilk and we use buttermilk to make biscuits. So either way, this buttermilk and butter was getting used, which was fun for me because I had never made butter before. And so getting to know how to use it and what we can use it for was fun. Here I'm trying again to decide, like I always do, how best to separate the two, making the least amount of mess with the most and least amount of effort, and not trying to dirty up as many dishes as possible. But I'm going ahead and taking it out, separating the butter from the liquid, and see, it looks a little fluffier. I think that's where I was getting a little disheartened. It looks a little fluffier than it should be. I felt like all the videos I was watching, it was more solid. And those of you that are watching this video that have maybe made butter before, definitely write down in the comments your thoughts and what I could have done different or what my viewers can do different to make this turn out well. Because again, in the end, it turned out just fine, but I think that it could have been better. So I'm taking the butter out, and I decide to put half in the bowl, and I decide to put the other half back into the blender and keep it going just to see if it made a difference, to see if, because it still looks really fluffy. And not super separated from the liquid. Didn't see a whole lot of liquid like I did on all the other videos I had watched. So I went ahead and put the other half back in the bowl and decided, almost dropped it, and decided to continue the other half to see just what happened and kind of experiment. And during that experimenting, I realized that definitely was a mistake because it all turned just to liquid butter. It ended up not doing well because the blender, as I went, the blender started getting warmer and warmer, causing the butter to get warmer and warmer and just melt. And I think that's where I was just trying to, decide what to do with it after that. But after letting it go for a little bit, I ended up just refrigerating it and then putting it in the freezer. And I was able to use it as butter for that too, but it doesn't last long because I didn't get all the buttermilk out of the one from the blender. Now, from this one in the bowl, I'm starting to get the butter out and squeeze it, or get the buttermilk out, and squeeze it. And that's your way of getting all the liquid, separating the buttermilk from the butter itself. And the more buttermilk you can get out, the longer it lasts in the refrigerator. So I was trying my best to get all the butter out, but I think, again, this was mistake number 4. I saw other people using wooden spoons to try to get the buttermilk out, and I saw some people using their hands. Now, that's what I wanted to kind of encourage you guys. If you have a way to separate the butter from the buttermilk with touching the butter as little as possible, that would be best. Here I did not, so I think the butter started melting some too while I was squeezing it because of course I was touching it a lot, and that causes it to kind of melt just like it would any other butter. So after I refrigerated it, after I separated it and got the buttermilk out, I saved this buttermilk in a separate jar and put it in the refrigerator, and later was able to use it for biscuits. After trying to separate the buttermilk from the butter with my hands, I went ahead and tried to rinse the butter, which is something that they recommend doing a few times with cold water. And I know this is something I could have done from the beginning to help it prevent or keep from melting as I did it. However, I wanted to try to save the buttermilk. And if you rinse too soon, then the buttermilk becomes watery. And I wanted to be able to save the buttermilk, so I didn't want to do it too soon. But here, that's what I'm starting to do, and I see that the butter is starting to look more like butter and forming the shape of a butter and getting a little bit more stiff, which is what I wanted to see. And so I'm trying to separate out the watered down buttermilk from the butter now. And the more you can get out, the better, because that way it lasts longer in the refrigerator. I do, because I know I didn't get all of the buttermilk out, I do go ahead and freeze mine. I wrap it in parchment paper towards the end and freeze it, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But here I am separating all the little pieces of butter out of the buttermilk and putting the watered down buttermilk in the fridge too, because I figured I could still try to use that. And it's kind of more of an experiment because you can see the difference between the buttermilk and the watered down buttermilk. That's the watered down. This is the regular buttermilk. And you can see the difference. One is a lot thicker than the other. and I'm just kind of experimenting and having fun. And so, and I got more thicker buttermilk later that I saved and put in there too. But the watered down buttermilk, I'm kind of curious if it would still work in biscuits. So I was going to try it at some point too and just kind of have fun with it. So now that I finally got as much buttermilk out as possible, I had stuck it in the fridge just for a little bit to kind of keep it from melting and getting too warm again. And now I pulled it back out, and I think I put it in for about an hour in the refrigerator just to kind of cool it off again. When I pulled it back out, I noticed that it still looked really runny. And so I decided to put it back in the bowl. I was going to separate it and go ahead and wrap it, but I decided to put it back in the bowl and try to get more buttermilk out. And this is where I got more thick, what looked to be thicker buttermilk. And I think this is the most tedious part, was just trying to separate the buttermilk from the butter. And it got a little messy. And however, I will say it was kind of fun too. So if I separated the part from worrying that I was doing it wrong from actually making the butter, I think making butter could be a lot of fun. I think I was just kind of like, I don't know if this is right. But I kept going anyway just to see what happened. And again, we were experimenting for fun, so no harm, no foul. And it turns out just fine. So here I'm squeezing for a long time, just trying to get the buttermilk out, and squeezing some more. So here's a place where you may think that we are finished, and you can be. This right there, I finished wrapping the butter in parchment paper, and you can also divide it into smaller segments, which I'll show later on. So you can be finished here. I took the time to wrap it, put it back in the refrigerator while I cleaned up to let it kind of cool off again and not to get too hot while I'm cleaning and separating the buttermilk and saving that and sticking it in a mason jar in the fridge. That's what it looks like. It's a lot thicker than the watered down buttermilk. And I also wanted to show and take the time you can take the butter one step further, which is what I decided to do since we were fully invested already in making mistakes and already learning. I decided to go ahead and take it that one step further and try to turn my butter into garlic oregano butter, which again, I have a few takeaways from this as well, and things that I will do next time that I liked, and things that I did not care for this next time that I won't do again. So one of those things being, I loved the garlic in the butter. However, two things that I would recommend. I don't think that I would recommend elephant garlic, which is what I'm using here. That's why the garlic bulb looked so big. It's an elephant garlic, and those are a lot larger. I think I would use just normal garlic because it doesn't have as much of a sharp taste to it. It has more of a sweet taste when it's in things. But I also think that I put too much garlic in the butter. So next time I probably won't put as much. I would maybe do like a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of minced garlic to every cup of butter. And I put more than that. So that's something that you guys can learn from my mistakes on. So I took the butter back out of the refrigerator after letting it cool again so that it doesn't continue to melt. And you can see it's just clean and yellow, light yellow. If you have cow's milk, the cow's milk butter will probably be darker than that and more yellow than ours turned out, but that's fine too. And this turned out and tasted great as well. So I'm taking the garlic and putting it on top. And then I decided to add oregano that we had grown in our green stalk outside. I have a green stalk, and those are amazing for growing herbs and everything. And so I grew oregano and dehydrated it and crushed it up, and that's what we're getting to use. So we're using our homegrown oregano and putting that on top, and I loved that. I would definitely recommend oregano in there next time, or if I do it again, I would use it again. So now I'm just taking this, and I tried to use the scraper to mush it up so I wasn't handling it, but it just wasn't working. It just kept sliding around everywhere. So I finally gave up and decided just to use my hands and get down and dirty in it. And this is the fun part where I think the kids would enjoy. My kids had already gone to bed by the time I got to this point, but next time I will try to start earlier in the day so that they can enjoy this part of it. So again, seeing a little bit of buttermilk that I'm deciding to drain off as I do it. But after mushing the minced garlic and the oregano into the butter and I did add salt as well. I added Himalayan pink salt, but you can use iodized salt as well, just regular table salt. But I went ahead and mushed it all together, mixed it up, and then put it back on the parchment paper. I separated it into different small pieces in parchment paper, wrapped it in the parchment paper, and stuck it in the freezer. I would definitely recommend that just because homemade butter goes bad faster than store-bought butter. And that way you're still capturing that freshness and getting to use it for as long as possible. Because there's no way that my family, I don't think we would go through this amount of butter within, 3 days or so. And we can use it for multiple different things, especially with the garlic and the oregano in it. We can do it on vegetables, saute vegetables. Later I'll show you how we used it on corn. And obviously it's great on bread. So that's kind of where I wanted to take this, the things that you can use this for, as well as the benefits of doing this would be for fun parties, fun family time. Again, kids would love to make the butter, and it would be fun to do as like a family as a fun activity to do it. I've even seen people do a marble and mason jars with heavy whipping cream. I just didn't want to run the risk of cracking my mason jars, but that's an option as well. So it's fun to do with family, and it's fun to use for special events, especially the ones with like the garlic and the oregano in it, parties, or even gifts of some sort to friends and family, like Christmas gifts, making special butter for them. Now, I will say the heavy whipping cream, if you don't have your own milk cow and you're constantly getting cream to make your own butter, financially, if you're doing it to save money, I wouldn't say that it saves money. The heavy whipping cream, one container of it cost over $6. And then I got a jar of buttermilk and three 3/4 sticks of butter, or 3/2 sticks of butter ish. And you can buy butter for a lot cheaper. Now, health wise, it's definitely healthier because depending on what kind of butter you get, then it doesn't have all those added ingredients because literally the ingredients in heavy whipping cream is all that it is. So depending on what kind of butter, and if you already buy grass-fed butter from the store, then that can make a big difference too. So hopefully this helps you guys. When you first try things, sometimes they may not work out perfectly the first time, and that's okay. That's why I wanted to make this video and go ahead and publish it and show you guys that not always do things turn out perfectly, and that is okay. We're all learning, we're all trying together. So I did want to taste it though while I have you guys with me and see, what it tastes like with the oregano and the garlic. I think that as it sits, the flavor will get even more intense. So this is what it ended up looking like right here. I don't know if you can see super well. And you can see the little bits of oregano and the little bits of garlic. And of course, the day I make butter, I don't have any other bread other than croissants in my house. So I'm gonna try it on a croissant and see what it tastes like. Okay, very strong on the garlic. I probably could have used less garlic next time, but the butter itself isn't bad. I'm very impressed that it turned out okay. It's very much soft in the consistency of butter now. I was a little bit concerned. After I refrigerated it, it turned out better. I was a little concerned that it seemed more like whipped cream earlier, that it was a little too soft and fluffy. As we're learning the different ways to do it that makes it even better and more perfect the next time. And so one of the things that I've learned is not to use my mixer. I think next time I'm going to use my handheld pureer and a handheld blender and see if that works out better. But overall, not too bad. I would do this again. I hope this helps you. It's kind of more of a video of what not to do to make butter. However, in the end, it turned out fine. It all turned out, it tasted fine. It tastes fine. But if you guys have any questions or suggestions, of course, comment below. Thank you so much for joining me. Please like, subscribe, and share. And I hope to see you guys next time.